Hi, this is Father Stephen Bauer, pastor at St. Alphonsus, and I'm up here in the choir loft with Bloye, our amazing music director, and we're here to do a little organ concert for you, a concerto, if you will, to find out what the organ can and cannot do.
So unlike a piano, the organ is not directly mechanical in the sense where when you play the piano, you strike a key and a hammer hits a string. On the organ, we have a continuous supply of air that is allowed to go through a hole into a particular pipe, and there's a pipe, at a minimum, one pipe corresponding to every key on the keyboard. So on this upper manual called the swell, if I pull out a stop, I'm going to have a pipe that will play for every note on this 65 key keyboard. And once in a while you will hear, and this is particularly an issue right now as we start our capital campaign, you will hear notes that don't sound where they should. And I'm going to play now in the pedal, which that's another thing. Unlike a piano, the organ has a completely independent foot keyboard, which not a lot of people always know about because they can't see me tucked away in the loft. But right there, the first note I played, what we would call as a dead note. Nothing happens. And I'm playing this chromatic scale here. We have a dead note, another dead note, another dead note, another dead note, and then now we're playing again, another dead note. So what's happened in this case is the leather pouch that allows air, when I hit the key or hit the pedal, the pouch collapses and allows a hole to open up so that air can rush into the pipe and make the wave come forth and sound and have the pipe sound into the room. When the leather that controls that pouch breaks down over many years due to just age and conditions, temperature changes, humidity changes, this leather fails, and then the hole cannot open up and the air doesn't come in and the pipe just can't do its job. And what we're having now is an accumulation after many years. This organ was built in 1946, and some of this leatherwork is vintage, so we're getting up there to the point where it's starting to fail. And you might say, well, why can't we just go in and replace these one at a time? Well, it's so cumbersome to get to them, and they're all failing, so if we did it one at a time, it would be not very efficient. So it becomes a situation where we have to take the organ apart, take them all out, and redo them all, especially when we can predict that they're going to fail. So this is kind of our dilemma. There's another stop here that I'll play, a lower stop, a 16-foot pitch stop. It might be low and kind of hard to hear, but again, we have dead notes. And there's an air leak. I don't know if you can hear it, but you can hear that some of the air is not being efficiently delivered to the pipe. There's a dead note. Dead note, dead note. So, and sometimes tuning is an issue. That's another thing that would be very apparent. For example, when I'm playing this stop on the choir manual, the lowest keyboard, you can hear that it's having trouble maintaining its tuning. So how does this affect playing? So we're lucky that this organ has so many beautiful sounds, and it's in a very rich acoustic, so a lot of these things can be hidden over time, but eventually they catch up with you. And for example, this is just a small Bach chorale prelude for the Lenten season. If you listen really carefully to the pedal line, you'll hear stops coming in and out, or pitches coming in and out. So in case you didn't hear that, I'm going to single out the pedal line. And you hear how it's sort of slow to speak, and some notes pop in and out. And then they disappear. So if this were being played by a cello or a double bass, it would be as if the notes were simply not sounding, and it would be very apparent that something's wrong. And it's sort of hidden, again, in this acoustic, and with the richness of this organ's sounds, but we're sort of losing the battle of how many ways we can cover some of these things up, and they're starting to become apparent. The other thing that can happen instead of not sounding is the opposite, not stopping sounding. And I don't know if I can produce that on demand, but that is a particular condition called a cipher, C-I-P-H-E-R. And those tend to come at the worst possible moment on Christmas Eve, Easter Sunday, during the procession of a wedding. And again, I'm not sure at this exact moment. They have a lot to do with humidity and temperature changes, but sometimes some notes will stick, sometimes they won't. But that is a problem also of breakdown of the mechanism that controls airflow into and out of the pipe. And we've had some high profile examples of these happening, and again, always at the worst possible moment. But when we address the leather issues, we should have a lot more control over these ciphers as well. So re-leathering the organ has been a massive undertaking. We've been doing it for quite a while, and some of the divisions are pretty much finished. Like the swell division, it stopped working back in around 2018 in a very dramatic and last-minute way. We had to fix it, and so we've had a lot of luck with that. The pedal division is now the one that's has the most problems, and it's a particularly difficult one just because some of the pipes are very large, and we're talking about a lot of leather, and it's hard to access parts of it, so it will be a big undertaking that will require all of the pipes to be removed from the organ, and then the entire leather, which is underneath. It's where the pipe sits down, and the wind supply comes from below, and that's where the leather is needed to operate the pouch where the air comes from. So it's it's a very big undertaking to really basically redo this entire division from 1946 work. And some parts of it have been more modernized than that, but a lot of this goes back, more than 50 years. So it's a big undertaking, but I think worth it so that we can hear this organ at its finest. One more thing I would like to add: the pipes that we see here up above were put in when we did the console restoration in 2008, and this particular pipe work was never there previously, and you didn't have this beautiful case. There was just basically, as I like to say, the guts of the organ were just out there. It would be as if you had a nice car with no hood on it. You could see everything inside. It wasn't protected, and it was visually not pleasant. But now we have these pipes, and they are wired to speak. They have what we call languids or tongues, and they have they feed into the air supply. But what we have not done is connected each one to the pedal board. So we have an empty stop tab for it. Principle 16. It would be really one of the mightiest and very full foundational 16-foot stops that this organ actually does not have yet. So when that day comes, I know I'll be very excited to hear what it sounds like, but we, at the time in 2008, we decided to leave it for future fundraising. And maybe that time is now, we'll find out. But I would really love to hear this stop in the room, and no one has ever heard it. So.
Now, you mentioned some of the larger pipes. What are the biggest pipes on the organ if it's not these here?
Well, around the corner, and I think you have a video, the one that I would say be the largest in physical scale is this open wood. In this step, it's called flûte ouverte in French, open flute. It's a very big scaling. It's almost more of a thunderous, low roar.
Yeah.
It is a pitched stop, of course, but when you get down there, it almost just becomes almost more sensation than pitch. But you can hear there's mechanical trouble with this stop too. And there's one of them that I could actually fit right inside of. It's that wide.
Wow.
And then of course we have some as small as a pencil up here that are. So there's just so many different sizes and shapes, and even families of stops. The trumpet, which was one of the 2008 additions to the instrument, which I'm very fond of, and so are the brides who get married here. A lot of them love to have a big trumpet to come down the aisle too, and we previously did not have that.
So, question. So, the stops control the pipes and the ranks of pipes that play, but some of the stops aren't working properly. So, if a stop isn't working, how come you don't call it the opposite? You don't call it a go?
Is that a dad joke?
I just want to clarify that the reason some of those foot pedals aren't working has nothing to do with the groans that the organ has made during some of my better dad jokes.
So I will now play a chorale prelude of Bach, based on a German chorale, of course. And this is a larger piece, and you will hear many more of the organ's colors in use, and many stops being drawn. And because this is an electropneumatic action organ, I don't have to literally draw each stop by hand. I can use a preset combination, which I will now press. And you'll see the stops will come out. Not all of them, but many of them, so hence the phrase pulling out all the stops. Well, we're pulling out a lot of them. And so here's a chorale by Bach.